Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? Welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire, everybody. Now this morning I'm beginning at a major landmark, a very big landmark, which the regular viewers amongst you will recognise. That right there is a huge water tower, and it's the start point for our trip around this huge village to the west of Hull. This is Swanland. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Swanland, a very affluent village to the west of Hull, situated just to the north of the River Humber. There are two theories surrounding its name. The first surrounds two men named Sweyn. The first was Sweyn Forkbeard, who sailed up the Humber in 1013, establishing a camp at Gainsborough. Another Sweyn, who invaded in 1069, used this area as a vantage point over North Ferriby. This then might have originally been Sweins Lund, which commuted over time to Swanland. The second theory is much simpler and states that this is the land of the swan, or swan's grove, stemming from Old Scandinavian. Lund, we already know of course, means grove. Whatever the case, Swanland's more recent history centres mainly around one man, Sir James Reckitt, who is mentioned a vast number of times around the place. Reckitt was created a baronet in 1894 for his services to industry and commerce. He was a Quaker and served as a Deputy Lieutenant of the East Riding and as Chair of Hull Royal Infirmary. He provided Swanland with much of what it has today, including its bowling green, its tennis courts, the playing fields, and he was also governor of the school too. He died in 1924. Let's have a wander around and see what else he did for this place. We begin at Swanland Water Tower, built in 1931 by Hull City Council. Its purpose was simple, to provide water to the village. However, if you've seen my Tales video on this, you'll know a bit more. During World War II, the Home Guard took advantage of its flat top and wedding cake-like shape and used it as a signalling platform. From the top, you can view the Humber and the Holderness Plain. Let's get walking. After ambling up Mill Road and Mill Rise, which by the way are references to an old windmill which from 1797 stood at the end of Woodgates Lane, we hit Newtonthorpe Close. Both that and this Swan House around the corner are flats managed by the Railway Housing Association. To be a resident here, you have to be aged at least 60. Next, it's Sykes Close. On the left as you enter is an equestrian centre. The yard you see here started business in 1992 as a riding school. Today the riding school is gone, but lessons are available on your own horse. So it's not long before you realise that Swanland is quite an affluent area, and considering this is to the west of a big city, that's actually no coincidence, and I can explain why. You see, back in the times of the Industrial Revolution, when the air was full of smog and smoke and things like that, the prevailing winds blew from west to east, which meant the eastern areas of towns became very polluted very quickly, and those that could afford it moved away from those areas to the west where the air was cleaner. And that's why you find places like Swanland these days have got a little bit more money. Properties are a bit more grand, shall we say. There are two small green spaces in this housing estate. This first one off Sykes Close doesn't have a name, but I can tell you that dogs are banned from using it. Rather odd, but them's the rules. The second one does have a name. This is the Green, and there's a cul-de-sac which shares the same name along one side of it. This can be found between that and Westerdale. A lot of these houses are designed in the Tudor-Beathan style, and yes, that's an actual term, believe it or not. It's more commonly known as Mock Tudor though in the UK. There's a post box up here, but Swanland does have a post office as well. It's located inside a shop, which is further around our route. Make no mistake about it, this is a village which is primarily residential, so there's not much point trying to cover every street. I nipped along Northfield to find a shortcut to Main Street. So we've reached Main Street, and here I need to tell you about two things which are not on the route, but I will be going to them in the car later. The first of which is St Barnabas's Church, which is that way off this road. It's not far up actually from where I'm stood on this little green patch, but it's easy to drive it because of the other thing, which is Swanland Hall, which is behind these houses here, just a bit further to the south. Doesn't make sense to walk up there and then drive around to Swanland Hall. I may as well drive up there and then drive around to Swanland Hall afterwards, do them both in one go. For now, we're heading this way into the centre of the village. Now this is where most of the interesting stuff is. So here we go into the village centre, and you'll notice as we journey around it that a lot of the amenities here are what I would term high-end. There are certainly ones which have an air of affluence about them. Over the road there is Priory Close, suggesting a priory once existed here. I can't confirm that, but there was a chantry chapel, a subsidiary place of worship to the priory at nearby North Ferriby. Here we find the village shop, which is a Morrison's local. Behind this there was once a primitive Methodist chapel, which was demolished in the 1980s. The foundation stone though was preserved, and it can be seen at Christchurch. That's coming up shortly. Just past the shop, which by the way is where the post office is, there's a beauty salon called the Aesthetics Clinic. Swanland only has one pub, and here it is. This is called the Swan and Signet, a reference to the village's name, and it opened in 1980 on the site of Priory Farm. So here we find a phone box. This one's got a working phone in it. And of course it's white because we're in the East Riding. We're used to seeing white ones now out here. Well, cream, I suppose. But the interesting thing I found about this one is, look at its shape. It's not the normal telephone box shape, that is it? It's slightly different. Swanland's War Memorial is next. This commemorates 14 men in total, 6 who lost their lives in World War I, as well as 8 in World War II. It stands outside Swanland Institute, which houses the Heritage Centre. Swanland Heritage Centre was formed in March 2013 as a local reference point for the history of the village. It houses a collection of Swanland photographs, documents, books, maps and transcripts. And there's a parish notice board on its wall. You can all tick Swanland off the list, guys. That's 70 down in the East Riding now. We'll soon be at the halfway point. Madness. Up until the 19th century, Swanland's main source of water was the village pond. At that time it was known as Swanland Dam. In 1893, Swanland sank its own well, and since 1931 the water tower has done the job, replacing an earlier tank which was sited close to the current doctor's surgery. Buses drop off here, by the way. The number 150 and 153 are your magic numbers. It's good when the street names do your job for you. Here's Blacksmith's Yard. So I'd imagine the blacksmith was somewhere here. May even have been that cottage there, which is on the end of it. If it was that cottage, it's now part of Mere House, once thought to be the oldest property in the village, but old maps prove otherwise. It used to be known as Dam Farm, as it overlooks the pond. This building here is a multitude of things. It's a florist on this side, and as you'll see shortly on the other side, it's an estate agent's. However, in 1855 it used to be a pub, known as the Fleece Inn. That name was then changed in 1858 and it became the White Horse. It closed in 1879 when its owner had his pub licence rescinded for allowing a labourer to drink heavily on Christmas Day. Where would an East Riding village be without an old water pump, I ask you? This is right next to the pond, which makes sense given it was once Swanland's main water source. It also stands adjacent to Swanland Surgery, and in turn that's in front of the village's bowling green. I'm loving the swan logo, by the way. That's certainly a recurring theme in this place. As village centres go, this is absolutely beautiful. Of course, the mere, or Swanland Pond should I say, is the main attraction. I can't see any swans on this pond though, considering this is Sweyn Lund. I can see a few ducks, but no swans at the moment. I'm sure there are some around somewhere, but yeah, anyway. Also in this village centre we've got quite a few planters with some lovely flowers in them. I'm particularly interested in this one because in the middle of it we've got some kind of pole which has got some memorial plaques on it. This one's quite hard to read, but it's for Stanley Gaze, 1907 to 2003, village butcher, I think it says. It's quite hard to read, that one. But a few other dates up there with the Yorkshire White Rose as well, and there's another one on this side of it too. Jim Dumsday of Mere House, 1947 to 2005. Here's Christ Church, which is the oldest religious site in the village. The first chapel in Swanland was the Independent Chapel, which opened in 1693 and was demolished and rebuilt by 1803. Swanland has the largest village hall I've seen for some time. This used to be a school. Swanland has had 3 schools by all accounts. The first was located inside the Independent Chapel. The second was the building I've just shown you, built in 1876 and provided by John Todd of Swanland Hall. Around the back is the James Reckitt Memorial Hall. Keep that in mind for later. This is a dead end. It leads to Swanland Tennis Club, and you access that by walking through this cute little play area. From here you get a great view of the bowls club, and the tennis club, by the way, is very well used. I didn't film it because it was heaving with people this morning. It's away to the left. So it would appear this playground is actually quite new because, as you can see from the sign on the gate, it's the Queen Elizabeth Platinum Jubilee Playground. We re-emerge from the village hall car park and we have a history board on the wall. Most of the information in this video has come directly from this, and here's a bit more. When the school became overcrowded, it relocated to this building on Tranby Lane. This is the original James Reckitt Memorial Hall, built in memory of his own son Philip, who died in his teens. Where Kemp Road meets Tranby Lane is a lodge. That's East Lodge, which guarded the entrance to Swanland Manor, where Philip Reckitt once lived. It no longer stands as it was demolished in 1935. It's a walk down Kemp Road next, and we pass a small milestone in doing so. In fact, it's so small you could easily miss it. Hull, 4 miles is what this one reads. It's then a right turn into West Lees Park, where the large properties keep on coming thick and fast. So much so, in fact, that I had to say something about them. So since leaving the centre of the village and walking down Kemp Road and now onto West Lees Park, the houses have become much bigger, much grander. I don't like using the word posh because I think it's derogatory, but they certainly are very, very posh houses. They really are. If I didn't think I belonged here before, I definitely don't belong here now. Whatever the case, as far as my involvement here goes, you can't deny Swanland has some of the finest properties we've seen thus far in the East Riding. To go with them, there's some new ones being built too. This is a brand new estate under construction off Westleys Road. The street name is, appropriately, Reckitt Drive. On to West Wold, and we've hit the playing fields, the development of which began in 1978. This building on the edge of them is a scout hut. Check out that bright purple paint. This here is the back of the pavilion, which is often open at weekends, selling sweets, ice creams and hot and cold drinks. No dogs are allowed on the playing field, but it has a number of facilities including a play area, football pitches and a cricket pitch. There's also 2 cricket nets, rugby posts, a BMX track and a multi-use games area which can be hired. So there is also a play area here as well, but there's plenty of children on it at the moment, so I'm not sticking the camera in their faces for obvious reasons. So yeah, Swanland playing fields to be found to the west of the village. Okay, let's go back to the road. There's more to see in the village centre yet. After a walk down Manor Road, we're back to Kemp Road. Right there we have a hairdresser's, but the property on the left, believe it or not, is an old dairy. It looks nothing like one now. This brings us past the tennis club again, and we have a row of shops. These are the oldest surviving buildings in Swanland. It's believed they were originally 4 cottages, and one became a blacksmith's forge. There are 2 rows in fact, although these are on West End as the 2 streets meet between them. The end one in this row is Swanland's pharmacy these days. Between them there's an arch which reads Berman's Yard. Swanland Nursery is in here, again something which uses a swan in its logo. Berman is still a prominent local name, by the way. And there's another row of shops opposite all of this. These include a trendy coffee bar, Oliver's, Liberté, a hair salon, and at the end of the row there's a physiotherapist. And there's also Calvert's Joiners right next to the physiotherapists as well. Now from here, it's a simple walk back along this road towards the water tower where we began this video. And then we'll drive down to St Barnabas's Church, and then we'll go to Swanland Hall. And that'll be Swanland, my friends, in the books. The only other thing of note now is Swanland House. This is a care home now, but originally when it was built in the 1860s, local seed crusher Andrew Duncan owned it. Picture bit time! So here we go then. To finish this one off, we've got St Barnabas's Church, which is just behind the camera right here. And then from here, we'll drive around to Swanland Hall, and that'll be that. As well as Christ Church, St Barnabas is Swanland's other religious site. This is a fairly new church, having opened in 1992. There was, however, a St Barnabas mission hall around a century earlier. That was built in 1899 and was located where Wingfield House is now, on Main Street. This was interesting. St Barnabas was dedicated by Donald, the Bishop of Hull. And so to Swanland Hall, which you find on Hull Park off Tranby Lane. This is a block of flats now. It's an 18th century building which was originally built for the Porter family, successful Hull merchants. John Porter was twice elected Mayor of Hull in 1770 and 1778. After his death it switched hands a few times before John Todd acquired it in 1827. His family held it for almost a century thereafter. The last residents to occupy the hall were the Claytons from 1947 until the mid-1970s. After falling derelict for a time, it was restored in 1984, and here we are today. And there you have it. That was Swanland, people. Another one down in the East Riding of Yorkshire. And our journey to the west of Hull continues with the next episode, which will take us down towards the bank of the River Humber. Did you know, by the way, from Swanland, you get a really good view of the Humber Bridge? As I came round from St Barnabas Church to park here outside Swanland Hall, you can see the bridge quite clearly. Well, I'm hoping to get a few good shots of the bridge yet again from my next place. You'll see where that is next week. For now though, this has been the parish of Swanland, and I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.